So this is part 2 of an introduction to finance and financial markets. So in this session we'll be taking a look at types of corporate finance decisions and the links between these decisions. So first of all, there's 3 types of corporate finance decisions. So we have investment decisions, financing decisions, and dividend decisions. So first of all, looking at investment decisions. So investment decisions are also referred to as capital budgeting, which we'll be looking at in a later topic. And it's basically the decision of what assets to purchase and how many of those assets to purchase. So it's normally weighing up the cash flows that you have to outlay in order to get the asset and the cash flows that asset will bring into the company. So an important aspect of this will be the cost of capital, which is basically the cost that the company has in order to get the capital or the cash needed in order to purchase these assets and maintain them. So we'll also be looking at how to calculate this in one of the later topics as well. So you can start to see here some of the links that are occurring between topics. The cost of capital is basically an opportunity cost. As it's the cost that that the company has in order to get this capital and use it, it's also an opportunity cost because that money could be invested at the company cost of capital rather than using it. So it's an opportunity cost for the business. And it's also going to be risk dependent on the company as a whole and the project that you're thinking of investing in. So a higher risk project or a higher risk business is going to have a greater cost of capital. So the second decision is the financing decision. And the financing decision is basically how to fund that investment. So that sort of has links with the company cost of capital. And we've basically got 2 main options, which is to finance the investment using debt or to finance it using equity. And the other choice is to whether to fund it using a long-term sort of option, so a long-term bond or shares sort of thing, or short-term, so maybe a short-term bill. That'll depend on the investment decision itself. So we try to fund long-term investments with long-term securities and similarly with short-term, and we'll be discussing that later on as well. So finally we've got the dividend decision, which is basically to distribute profits to shareholders or to reinvest them in the business for distribution at a later date. Now there are very important links between these decisions and they all tend to impact on each other. So if we just take a look at the first one here, the dividend decision is going to impact on the investment decision because you've got, if you decide to distribute the funds rather than invest them, you can see that's impacting. So we've got, if we don't distribute, we can probably invest. However, if we invest, we can also impact on dividends at a later date. So greater investment will mean greater profits in the future and therefore greater dividends. And the investment decision is also going to impact on the financing decision because the price and length and patterns of return is going to affect what type of finance that you decide to choose for that investment. So as I said, long-term assets will be funded by long-term investment financing choices, and the higher the price, you're obviously going to need more financing, and the patterns of return will also affect it because you've got patterns of payment for financing and patterns of return for investment, and you try to balance them as much as possible. So you can see there's very strong links between the three types of decisions that are involved in corporations.